final panel discussion of the day. And this time we are going to be tackling the topic of innovating with compassion, the role of AI in developing next generation treatments for the vulnerable population. And of course, we are going to be needing some amazing panelists for this and a moderator. So I would like to welcome to the stage Dr. Syed Junaid Alam. Yes, there. And of course, Uluk Yuka, he is also here. Dr. Omar Musa and Dr. Sam Samani. If you can all put your hands together, welcome our panelists and our moderator.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Saman. I'm happy to be joined today with wonderful people who will ask them to introduce themselves and start a lovely discussion.
Okay, my name is Dr. Syed Junaid Alam. I'm one of the occupational health consultant, and I got background in orthopedics as well as family medicine. And I recently completed courses in artificial intelligence in healthcare.
Hello, my name is Ulu Chuja. I'm the co-founder of Vitaplay. We build therapeutic games. Currently, we're working on a game called Serenium. It's backed by neuroscience and immersive gaming to help kids with ADHD.
My name is Dr. Musa. I am a clinical doctor from Amsterdam that is now currently doing research in Harvard MGH, Boston, where I focus on the reconstructive treatment and surgery and how to actually comprehend that for personalized treatment in a psychosocial but also surgical way for this vulnerable population. Because that is what we're going to talk about today. Right, guys?
Exactly.
Please, Dr. Sam.
So I think AI is the opportunity of our lifetime. In this generation and the time we are living in, there is nothing more interesting than AI. We are talking about it all the time. And I will start by a question for our panelists. How you think AI should be used to help vulnerable population? And the question maybe we need to start with, what is vulnerable population?
I think it's a very important and basic question to need to define what is vulnerable population. Because if you see from different angles and from different lenses and different perspective, vulnerable population can be defined in different ways. But obviously, we're talking about in context of health. So it can be defined in two ways, like people who are people with disabilities, or special people, or maybe people with chronic diseases. But in another way, we can also define it as a kind of people who are living in a kind of underprivileged areas, or they do not have enough resources, and as a result, their healthcare and general well-being is affected. So they are also called vulnerable. But if it depends on exactly what we are talking about and which context we are talking about, so that will define a vulnerable population. But I think for today's discussion, we need to come up with some kind of common ground that so that we can focus our discussion on that.
I think that is exactly the trigger point where AI comes in. There are so many variables that we as human beings are being biased with, where we own have our own perspective from our own environment, to which we, of course, reflect some kind of definition. But what AI can do, what we cannot, is actually see it from a more objective point. With pattern recognition, of course, based on what's imputed, we can eventually use it as a resource to see what the definition should be, or we don't even have to define it. So when we go back, of course, you have like the more comprehensive, holistic approach that we have, not only in the healthcare world, but also in the more business world, where you have to see things as a whole. And humans, as we are always a whole, complete being where we should be treated that way. If we're talking about psychosocial or even biological kind of vulnerability, I think AI can do a lot of taking different variables, different components, seeing the patterns in those which we are less able to see, and enable us to use it as a toolbox tool to actually be more productive, effective, cost efficient, and take us to the next level of providing care and actually having the bandwidth to do so. So, for instance, being more compassionate, empathic, having more time to do the things that we want to do and not only the things that we have to do for our work. What do you guys think on that? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, vulnerable people, they could be, misserved or underserved, right? I mean, they could be people that they don't have the access. They could be people they have the access, but that access is not good. In most of the countries we have that. Or they have the access, but there is something wrong on, because, in front of the health sector industry, we're all vulnerable because we don't have enough information at the end what's going on. I mean, you don't get into a hospital and see this price tag, right? Brain surgery, $100,000, knee surgery, $50,000. There's a lot of unknowns here. So we are almost, vulnerable, all of us at some point. What is needed here is that when you talk about vulnerability, misserved, underserved, I think about scalability, affordability, right? And crafting, personalization. So what does AI do? And then I'm going to give some examples from what I do because I think it's going to make more sense. What does AI do? AI saves time and money. What does that mean? It means that we can do more things. We can come up with more solutions, better solutions, efficient solutions in short period of time using less capital. Because at the end, this is business. We're all running a business. Even though our mission is to help millions of people out there, it's all boils down to capital, right? You have to make the investors happy. You have to make the team happy. You have a lot of responsibility as a business owner. So what does that mean? If we come up with all these solutions in a short period of time, which I give an example from what I do, as I said, we're building this game for kids with ADHD using neuroscience. We use AI in two parts. One of them is building and developing the game and also designing the game. It's been like 8 months. Our MVP is out. Our trial is out. We could have done this without the help of AI. It was impossible. On the science part, pattern recognition, decision making, right? And also problem solving. Those are all related to AI and has always been in gaming. Okay? So we have tests going on with 100 kids with ADHD. What we have to do is that, we test them using brain scans, and then collect the data. We listen to their brains. And also we apply this to the game. So when the kid is playing the game, AI, AI is all about if and then. If the kid does this, then you do that. This is AI. Okay, so if the kid is, you see that less focused, then decrease the complexity of the game or change the music or change the pattern. But on the other hand, there's machine learning, of course. The machine learning is in the long term, it recognizes those patterns and everything. So it does everything to increase that brain, functions as executive functions, focus, impulse control, and emotion control. So to sum up, saving time and saving money, we can build more scalable, more inclusive, more, crafted and personalized, solutions for people in need. And also this goes to, if we have this open data for everyone, data that we can trust, which will come to that, probably via institution, God, if we can find one, it will be more available, this data for everyone, especially people in need.
Thank you. It was a great answer, but let me go and follow up with another perspective, which is mental health and AI. How do you think, and I will start from my right side, how do you think AI can be helping us solving problem like mental health?
Okay, the AI has been there for quite some time and more been used in the healthcare settings, and in the last couple of decades is becoming more and more sophisticated and quite, in a way, intelligent. So we are already using AI in mental health in terms of like patient education, first of all, that, giving them kind of automated programs so that they can go through like what we do it in like cognitive behavioral therapy or counseling. It can be done by chatbots or virtual assistants. So they can already use it in their own time and space, so that they can find this kind of a first aid, mental health first aid, right at the like their desktop. And then if their programs are intelligent enough to find out that the responses they are receiving, and in a way they are some worrying pattern or something, so it can alert like their primary care physician or maybe their psychiatrist and for a follow-up. So these things are already being used, plus like those screening tools, which for example mental health screening tools, they are being introduced, and they are like quite sophisticated in picking up like a very subtle sign of anxiety and depression. So these tools are already there being used, and more I think people are using like remote monitoring and virtual care and personalized care pathways for those people. So these things are already been done. So I think in those kind of areas significant strides already been made. This only question is how to basically make them available for people who are needing it most, because lots of people we just finished the session on happiness. Lots of people in the area where basically they're like there are not enough resources or facilities available, so they've got all sorts of mental health issues without them they're recognizing it, because they do not have enough insight to know that like whether they are happy or not happy. But if those things are available to those areas, so those people can access, and then their mental health well-being can be improved in a way.
I will go to Dr. Omar and ask him his opinion.
I can go, and I perfectly align with everything you said. The thing is, where everything in a biopsychosocial model, of course, takes the whole person apart. So the moment that we use AI and it actually gives us some more bandwidth to actually see the patient is, I think, classified in three specific regions, where, of course, you have the biological, psycho, and social part. We also have the whole treatment pathway, where it starts with everything in the beginning of screening, identifying which of these patients you're talking about, like the homeless ones in poverty with lower socioeconomic status, which one of those deserve the earliest care of a doctor that's also burdened with a lot of people at the same time. That way, we could, of course, integrate something like AI to be a more pragmatic solution for those places, but also for the higher socioeconomic places where we do have screening possibilities, like in the Western world, where there's a lot of different data coming in. A very predictive trained model can check which variables are present and then can just blink out some of these patients to show us these ones are to be expected in the future having XYZ as a diagnosis. So I think it's very adaptable. And then going back into clinic where my work focuses on this whole holistic part, just because it's later in the day and I know a lot of people are actually a little bit tired, let's put it that way. Let me make it more a live example. So in my clinic, we do a lot of treatment for the reconstructive patients, where at one day, a traumatic patients come in, and the patient was at first sight seen as to be homeless. No insurance, homeless clothes, everything that you could think of, he had to get the stigma of being a homeless person. He comes in and he had a car accident. A car crashed into him and he lost his leg. Left leg, where he would need an amputation of that whole side. At that moment, he's not insured. So in the US or in the Netherlands, it's always first thing, who is this? What kind of insurance does he have? How can we adapt our treatment towards that? Which is not compassionate in any way. And no one in this world wants to treat it that way. But we're still doing it. Why is the question that pops into my head. And that is just because the infrastructure, the blueprint that we're having at this point is not set in the right way. It's set in a way that we're actually pressured to do it this way. And how I see AI is actually a way to identify that patient in an earlier stadium, get more bandwidth to actually be more compassionate and helping those people that are more in need and being more universal and compassionate kind of healthcare system instead of the way we're doing it now. And to get there, I think collaboration also, and as a fundament, is one of the most important things to start from a new, fresh start at this point with AI as a tool. And how do you think we'll get there? Because you're, of course, Dr. Sam, one of the more leading experts in this field. How can we integrate that?
In fact, one of the challenges that I think we have in integrating AI is data and ethical question about how you use data and how you integrate that in a solution. And also, there is another challenge that is major. Who will be your arbiter? Do you trust the current institution? Because yes, we need institutions to monitor everything. But honestly, when I see, and I'll be honest, very old people uh, judging, do we need to use technology or not? It's scary. But we still, I agree with all of you that AI is the path to reduce cost, at least in the basic care and in the, let's call it preventive care as well. So I want to go also to maybe to ask my panelists about another very important thing that touches that, which is privacy and data security. And I will start with you because we skipped you in the mental health thing. So what do you think?
Can I like just talk about the data first, like, because that's, we always ask this question. AI is as good as the data you provide and you teach it to it. Actually, basically, that's a simple term. And nothing we talk here will make any sense if we do not, stand that data to truth. The truth meaning there's some basic theories in life that we go through our daily lives, and those are like computation theories, theories of epistemology, theories of thermodynamics, theories of quantum physics. It should be there. Otherwise, whatever we say here, it's not going to make any sense. So whatever I say from now, it's like a disclaimer. We think that we are teaching AI based on that data. Because bias means two things, right? It can be, you don't have like a lot of samples to test, and that, the result could be bias, or you're just biased because you just want to show your investors or whatever, just quick results, and you just upload these all biased information. So that data doesn't make any sense. We cannot start here. So basing on the truth, then AI, yes, it will save time and save money. And, going back to your question, I'm going to come to that. And then maybe compassion a little bit we're going to talk about. But mental health, I like to call it brain health a little bit more, is about irregularities in executive function, right? Could be memory, could be your impulses, could be your focus, could be your emotions. Like my son has ADHD, and that's why I'm also like as compassionate with a lot of parents. I have to teach parents and teachers how to treat those kids, because this is not a joke. This is something else. So if we know this and we start with the good data, okay, we're collecting the data properly. Kids are playing the game, and AI on the other hand will have this pattern recognition and craft the game, personalize the game according to those kids, because ADHD itself doesn't mean all of them have focus problem and also they are hyperactive. No, ADHD was started as, attention deficit first. That doesn't mean that all of them are hyperactive. So you have to like kind of categorize that. And once you do that, once you come up with good data, then the personalization of that game and adapting that to game each kid will be proper. And if you're going with the proper process and everything, you'll see the results. But at the end, again, it will come to, it will take good things in life, takes time, take money. Although we are making everything easier with AI, these things will take time. We're in a very, very incredible industry here. It's not like, okay, test this and let's go. We have the results. We cannot do that. It's so. And talking about data privacy, we share a dashboard with the parents because they need to understand. And it's all about actually good explanations. You have to have a good explanation to the parent, to the people in need. Good explanations they need to understand, because we're putting those things, at their kids, and, we're testing them. They need to understand what's going on here in a public language, and you need to be compassionate, to them. And data privacy, yeah, data security. I don't want to freak you guys out, but I don't believe in databases. I believe in blockchain. I think blockchain is a good solution here to keep it secure, and also like cross-border transference and everything. Yes, there's a lot of bad usual, but as far as the computing power, as far as the security, it's safer, it is cheaper, and it could be application, could be, in a broader term. We just need to know how to use it.
What's your take on this?
Yes, I second your thought on availability of data and also private data privacy. But also we're talking about use of institution or maybe cross-stakeholder collaboration. So in that case, I think probably we need to be very careful about how we can secure the data while at the same time collaborating with other entities and stakeholders. Because if you're talking about holistic approach, biopsychosocial model, so in that case, we may need to liaise with other organizations, other entities, especially people who are already vulnerable in terms of like whether they're health-wise or whether socioeconomic-wise. So in that case, if this data is susceptible to like a breach of confidentiality and privacy, then it can lead to further problem for those very population which we're trying to address, because it can have connotation from the point of view, insurance point of view, from like providing medical insurance point of view, and marriages and other like employability, and all those things can be at risk for them. So it is especially when we're talking about the advancement of AI into genetic medicine, when the genomic details are available and they can be shared. So in those cases, I think it's very important to have very strict rules and kind of guidelines how we can share the data without breaching the confidentiality of individual, especially when we're talking about people who are already suffering from different kind of vulnerabilities. So I think it's data privacy and it's very important. And at the same time, when we are talking about compassion, and so I think it's important that we need to take this ethical aspect into consideration, so that we are not adding to their problem, because AI may be a solution for certain things, but there are some areas where basically human need to make a decision, because AI is a tool. How we can use it, somebody needs to make a decision. Who is going to own the data? Somebody needs to make a decision. Where it's going to be owned? Who is going to be safeguarding in this data? So this is something that needs to be addressed at maybe a governmental level, maybe an institutional level, so that these because in the last 2 decades this AI has been grown exponentially, but rules and regulations are quite individual to individual countries or maybe individual states and areas. But when we're talking about cross party collaboration, cross stakeholder collaboration, so I think we need to have more stringent rules and data privacy rules, so that AI can be used in a safe way and people feel confident about using it.
What's your take on this?
I think I resonate with that in a lot of ways where, of course, we're going to be cautious. When we're cautious, we still have to be the user doing it. So in what way and which techniques are we going to implement and integrate in the ways we direct them? Because eventually any tool is as good as the user using it, right? So we need a good captain, an institution, whatever. We need the right implementation in the right fields. And at the end, we also need good control over during the whole process. All those things start with benchmarks, guidelines, like you said. And to start with that, it's something that we should try and collaborate more on. What we're doing now is actually not making use of diversification or diversity as a possibility, but more as a barrier. We see each other in every field as if we're different and we're doing it in a different way, just like countries. What we were speaking of yesterday in the EU, over the US, overseas, what I have seen during all the different perspectives in healthcare, we can learn from each other. And that is where I think this is the time to build those bridges, set up those institutions, and actually see what's out there. Because to wake up everyone a little bit up, I want you to think of something. What is eventually the reason that we're scared of the unknown? Why is that in the human being? The reason is that it actually challenges everything that we do know. And we as humans do not like that. We want to stay in our comfort zone. And that is our safe haven. But what we're actually doing here in the healthcare has great potency and is yielding to help everyone outside our comfort zone. So that is where I think, of course, being cautious with everything that we're doing, when we first sit together in a collaborative way and we make those decisions, we can go and continue forward together in a collaborative way and then see those opportunities and possibilities as a problem that we set on the table. But as we do it now, everyone, I think, is deemed to eventually also fail in a lot of ways, which is not bad, but I think it's less yielding than when we do it together.
I heard the other day the president of Google saying we are developing AI responsibly. I don't know if I can believe him or not because he said so. Who can prove it to us? And the question I would ask my panelists to how we can develop, let's call it benchmarks or a way to trust the AI providers.
I think there are already lots of research there, and what they say is about current AI models, about 80% they are in books and in scientific literature. Only 20% are implementable. So that means that there are lots of research already going on, and then they are trying to, implement it. But so far, from strategy to implementation ratio is very low. So that means, if we want to serve the vulnerable population at their end, so we need to take those ideas and those kind of guidelines or parameters out of those scientific literature into the real world. So that.
But let me just refocus on a point because I'm interested to have an answer from you about this particular point. We have an AI system. We are using it for healthcare, right? It's developed by Google. Okay. If that system messes up and instead of doing good, doing bad for the patient, where is the responsibility? How we can set up responsibility guidelines from this perspective? I'm not talking about the research here. I'm talking about being responsible for the product you are providing. You are touching lives. You are touching people.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually in the previous discussion we mentioned that somebody has to take the responsibility, and whosoever is adopting one particular model, so they need to take the responsibility of because as I say that AI is a tool at the end. The people who are using it, so they need to monitor it whether it's been used in a way that is basically serving the population, where basically is the way it should, because first and foremost health paradigm is that do not harm. So if any in a tool or any kind of a, technology which we are developing is going to harm them, is going to cause problem, then obviously it should not be used in the first place. And obviously we need to decide that what is right and what is wrong, and this is where basically we need to have some kind of a collaboration with I think from within the countries and then between the countries as well, so that if we can learn from other experience and other examples, so that we can use it in a way that this was being used there and it caused these problems, so that this becomes a kind of benchmark for the other people. It becomes set a precedent for other people that yes, this has been used there, but it's caused this problem, so that they can develop from there. And AI itself is learning from itself. That is, the more and more it becomes advanced, and from artificial intelligence, we're going to go to cognitive intelligence. So it will take into account all those abstract values like faith and ethics and all those things. So there needs to be developed in a way that somebody is responsible, and then there are some kind of parameter guidelines at each stage and for each particular model. And but as I mentioned earlier, that it has expanded so much exponentially that there are very little regulation at the moment, and we don't know where to turn to in terms of like seeking a kind of benchmark or guideline.
So, what measures we can develop concretely to hold an AI application, let's call it worthy of being used for healthcare or not? Clinical trial?
Well, again, going, if we assume that the data is correct, we talk about responsibility. I think we as humans, our OS is updated 2 times. We are version 2 and we are holding iPhone 16. That's the biggest problem. There's a huge gap that we're trying to, comprehend this AI and everything. It comes with new terms and so on and so forth. But the responsibility, like someone asked me the other day, do you think AGI will be democratic? And I said, where did democracy come from? Where did you invent this one? Why did we need democracy? So going back to reliable data, if they are using this or not, like Facebook or Google, they're hacking us, right? They're turning us into clickbaits. Why? Because we're seeing all this terror, bad news also like that, right? It just travels more quickly, it spreads more quickly because it could be fatal. It's in our DNA, right? Bad news because this guy, he ate something from the tree and now he's dead. This news spreads more than the good news. And I can say well, healthcare and heart rate is going down 10%. You say okay, but if I say, hey, there's a fire going on in the neighborhood, it's a matter. So these algorithms, again, going back to we need an institution, we need the checks and balance mechanism here that we should trust. And now that the big question is that how are you going to trust that? How are you going to know that this is not biased? Well, we need to start from somewhere. Of course, these companies like Microsoft, like OpenAI, they will be more on the profit side. They will be, kind of on the monetization side. That's the nature of the beast. It's been always like that. First, emergence of internet, emergence of, like everything is a bit the new technology. We have seen this. This story is not new. But we need checks and balances in between that some people can do, and this should come from the government. And God help us with that.
I will keep it very short because I think most things have been said. I think because I'm also in a more clinical research point, it should be treated the same way. We need IRBs, which are objectively controlled by an institution, by something where it's always transparent what happens, which is not at this point, where everyone is doing his own thing behind the screen. And when there's any questions, it's always the same. We're doing fine. Don't you worry, which is not okay. That is something that we could lose all humanity to. And that is exactly where the trigger point is. If we can control that part, there we have enough creative mind and creative big minds that can think of solutions as long as we keep it transparent, keep collaborating and doing it together for everyone. The community being together for also the socially vulnerable, but also the poverty. Everyone should be included in this.
Okay. I have a follow-up question, and it's a follow-up concerning ethically possible. Do you think we'll have very soon an AI doctor? And if we have an AI doctor, is that ethically acceptable?
We already have got what they call it a clinical decision support system. That means they are using AI models to triage patient in ER. They're also using AI to diagnose diabetic retinopathy, and there are different kind of condition and finding in that one.
But we don't have AI doctor that prescribe medications and follow up with you. Would that be acceptable ethically?
I would not like to think so that it would be acceptable, because then we are dehumanizing the healthcare delivery, because in that case this is just AI model which basically responsible for decision making, and which cannot be challenged or in a way. So somebody has a human doctor needs to be in control of those things so that they can make decision. Yes, they can use AI models as a tool to assist them in diagnosing and treating individuals. But as a AI doctor, uh, yes, you can call them AI doctor, but in reality, I think there should be kind of assistant to doctor rather than doctor themselves.
So no AI doctor. What do you think, Dr. Omar?
I think what you're meant to say is there's always a person, a human being behind the steer. I think
That's
that
correct.
that is the eventual conclusion we need. We can use AI for everything that we as human beings think we should use: admin, paperwork, transcribing, everything we do not want to do, and AI is way better in doing. But what AI is not doing is being empathic, compassionate, relating and connecting with the person in front of them. If you would ask anyone, also, there's a lot of research published recently. If you would ask anyone, would you be comfortable by an AI fully answering all your questions? They would actually favor a doctor making mistakes, but still being there for them because they trust in those doctors is higher. So if we can find a way to get to a perfect equivalent in doing everything towards the patient, personalized care, by using these tools, we can still be upfront, sitting there, being there for the patient.
Your take, and I'm curious if we are going to link this to
And
HAI.
and I'm gonna finish with a story. I think that's going to tell you guys a lot. Anything, information in, information out, will be replaced by AI. That's including doctors. Is that okay? I think we need a human touch. And I'll tell you the story. My mom had a hip operation today, hip replacement. We went through 6 doctors. 3 of them, they said, no, she needs to have a back operation. 3 of them, they said, no, she needs to have a hip operation, hip replacement. So I don't know if an AI doctor would conclude this, no, 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 she has to have like hip operation. But you know, how did we decide? We decided with one doctor. I don't know what is it about human touch and what we do when we talk to each other. Call it serendipity, call it something else, but something happens there. We felt that he was more compassionate. Okay, not empathetic, not feeling sorry, not like doing like business, but we felt like this doctor is the doctor. So this is how we based on our the final, and she had the operation today, and it went really well. So
Congratulations.
so this is the story that
So we have some minutes left. I will give possibilities for questions. So any question for the panel?
Or comments, of course.
Let's talk AGI.
No question. So maybe a small question and raise hand. Who will use an AI doctor if there is one? Great. So he's still human. One. Okay. One is taken by the machine. Okay. You have a question? Okay. Mhm.
Let me ask this: which jobs do you think will be the safest? Competing with AI, which jobs will be safe? What do you think?
AI developers.
Are safer, which will avoid competition from AI because they require the human touch, they require empathy, compassion. So definitely those jobs. And Also, just a comment on your discussion whether you would like an AI doctor. I think presence and consciousness are a huge part of the healing process for a person, and the human presence, the human touch is a healing factor again for the patient. So judgment, ethics, compassion aside, just the presence of a human is absolutely imperative in the healing process. And it's not a surprise, because sometimes when a child is sick, and sometimes it's just the mother's presence which is very healing for that person. Similarly, like in your case, a doctor you trusted a doctor you trusted gave you the confidence and the ability to believe in that. And if at all we believe that our thoughts kind of shape our realities, and consciousness has healing properties, then I believe that we cannot have an AI doctor in the future. It can definitely help us for decision making, but I think it will be difficult for a doctor to be replaced by AI.
Thank you for our panelists. There is a question, last question. Let's take last question. Or comments, please.
Sorry, thanks. Sorry, more than a question, is just a statement. I think rather than sort of thinking if you want to have an AI doctor, I think it's more paramount to think, because AI is here to stay and we've got to face that reality. It's more paramount to think is, how can we complement AI from a physical doctor's perspective to make the best use of it for patient care, patient enhancement, patient safety? If we can get that combination right between the doctor as a physical being and AI as a tool, I think we're on a winner. Thank you.
But don't you think we're going to find ourselves in kind of pickle? Because let's say we have a good connection with the doctor and he's very experienced, he has tons of knowledge. But on the other hand, we're talking about this AI with his thinking 15,000 dimension way, right? As all the computing power, all the, the data is there. And one of them is saying something else and his AI is something else. What would you do?
So I think you've got to look at the AI as providing as much evidence and as much information for that doctor to make an informed decision with his clinical experience, expertise, as well as the knowledge available. If he can do that to the best of his ability, then I think, that the patient gets the best of both worlds.
I hope they get along well then, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah. I would like, with the word evidence, some cliche quote came up to mind. I think data gives you all the evidence, but sometimes the best choices are not based on evidence. They are based on confidence. And I think that is sometimes exactly what we need in human beings in front of us. Not only doctors, but all care providers. Thank you for all your work and efforts also these days by doing that for the people in front of you.
Thank you.